Conversations with our parents on gun violence and mental health. So today, we're going to be having some conversations with a professional as well as conversations with the parents also here today. But before we begin anything, let us introduce our committee members, the Health and Wellness Committee members. I'm Abdul Pesima. I am the chairperson for the committee. And we have here
Susan Levine. I am one of the newer members of the committee, and it's a pleasure and an honor to serve on this committee. Having recently moved to Denver, I became aware of this organization and was asked to serve on this committee, and it's an honor to do it, and it's important to talk about mental health and breaking the stigma of mental health, allowing people to talk about how they feel.
And also we have here today with us
Hi, Abdul.
Hi.
Hi, good afternoon, and my name is Elizabeth Munoz, and I work with an organization called 365 Health. Basically, my job there is really to do coalition building and also getting out there with COVID vaccine 19 access. To me, this topic is very important because, you know, it's important that we are able to have knowledge or access to be able to get mental health for whether it's parents or teenagers out there. So mental health is something that it's a big stigma and we don't talk about it, and it's important that we do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody, for your introduction and commenting. Now we have to go straight into the business of today, you know, and we want to introduce our dear sister here that's here, the professional that's here. Jillian, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. My name is Jillian Diamond. I'm a psychologist in Denver, and I do a lot of things, but one of the things that I'm passionate about is supporting the communication between children, teens, and their parents, and supporting parents be the supports that they want to be for their kids when that's difficult. So happy to be here today.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's get in on. There's a place to sit over there.
Should we dive in?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I think is a good place to start this conversation is first understanding the challenges that each of you may face when trying to parent and support your child's mental health. You know, when we talk about how to break down the stigma about mental health, it's important to start talking about what are the barriers there, what are the challenges that you face when trying to communicate with your kids on this topic.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think we would like to get some introduction here too. The two parents that we have here, as well as Susan has already introduced herself, and I have introduced myself already. Can you please go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Medina Nakuya, and I am part of ALG. I sit on the Women Empowerment Committee, and I'm also a parent. I'm glad to be here, and this topic, mental health, and the stigma is one of the topics that we had in our cohort 2 for the African leadership. What's the course called? Leadership Africa.
Leadership Africa.
Leadership Africa, yeah. So we realized that this is the biggest challenge youth are going through, having gone through COVID, and with all the other challenges that they are facing. Mental health was the biggest challenge all youth across the states were facing. And I'm glad we're talking about it today.
We also have one of the parents that was here 2 weeks ago.
Yes, hi, my name is Nahom Hagos, and I am a member of ALG, and I'm here to participate in the program with mental wellness. Yes, hi, thank you for having me, guys. Definitely.
Please don't forget that we are having a conversation here today, okay? And that's what Dr. Jillian will be leading us into. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you put up a question, and what was the question again?
The question is, what barriers do you face when trying to communicate with your children about mental health? What makes that challenging at times?
First of all, I could say we are in two different zones, as they're in the teenagers and the parents are in two different zones. No matter how they're living together in the same environment, we are in two different zones altogether. The teenagers or the youth are more exposed to social media, whereas the parents, we are just catching up. So whatever they're seeing on social media is so different from what we know, or whatever we know about the iPhones, whatever the technology, we learn from them. So the kids have more knowledge of the technology, which is part of the stress that leads to this mental health.
So you feel like you're always catching up.
We're just catching
Yeah.
up, which makes it so hard for us to understand what they're going through or why they're feeling what they're feeling. Because while we're growing up, we're not so much exposed. You know, we're kind of we're protected by the environment we grew up in. Now, with our children and social media and all technology, they are not protected. They're exposed to too much that we as parents don't even know how to help them. Because whatever they're exposed to, we don't know. They teach us this and they decide what to show us. They don't show us everything. So there's a gap that we don't know how to help them. And what we know is only what they've given us access to. Whatever they go to or whatever they dive in without our knowledge, we don't know how to help them, unfortunately.
So one of the things I'm hearing you say is that it's hard to support your kids when you don't really understand
The source.
what they're experiencing, and you want to understand.
Yes.
But you only get a glimpse into what they want to show you
Yeah.
and what they want to tell you about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, she's just a parent actually that want to try to see how she can understand her children, as such, But for some of us who are maybe older, way older, immigrant, we practically don't want to have anything to do with whatever the children are doing, So those are all the problems that we might be having, in the sense that we're not able to understand our children, the modern day children that we have today, we are not able to understand how they think, how they do things, and all of those kind of things. Apart from the fact that the phone itself, we don't even know how to use the phone.
Yeah.
Some of the parents don't even know how to use their cell phones. They're always calling on their children. Hey, what is this? Those kind of things. So, but she's doing very well. She's trying to understand.
Trying to understand.
But we do have some other parents who are not trying to understand it in any way, and they have their own rules and regulations that they think should be followed, especially African parents, we have those things that you have to follow this. If not,
Wanting your children to understand you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And follow the examples that we set for them as they are supposed to, or the African way of doing things,
Yes, no, completely. Especially the ideology that was set in stone with you from your parents. You kind of ideally want to pass it along to them. But I think I feel like it's lack of accountability. Right now I just heard everybody state, hey, yeah, we know there's a problem and we're aware of it, but how can we solve it? We've already acknowledged the two most important things. We know what it is, and we kind of have an idea where we can start, because I think the conflicting part is both at home and in school, because, when you send your kids to the school, you don't know the criteria.
Yeah.
And even if you know the criteria, the parent's not taking the accountability and deep diving into it and being a part of that structure, building the structure to be able to have that communication and be able to have that bridge to be able to look at what app or what resources is more beneficial for the kid. I feel like we always wait to use that leverage or as an excuse towards the end when something happens, it seems like. I'm like, well, then why do we always have to wait until something does happen? Then why do we always come back to the same excuse? But it seems like it's accountability and participation, it's every parent that, you bring a child into this and you instill all these rules that you yourself have, right? But then you have to understand how you're going to combat the American structure, American dream, the structure in reference to the education system and all the healthcare system, and how to be able to pivot those. I feel like those combat those I don't want to say disabilities, but those issues, you know. And I think we should have that. And I guess by having this conversation is a great thing, I guess, you know. Definitely.
I think that every culture has its expectations. Okay, I'm an American. I grew up in this
Yeah, environment.
environment, but I had very specific expectations from my family, from my culture. And I think that whatever culture you come from, it's about, my belief is creating a safe environment for your kids to communicate to you what's going on. If they don't feel safe in their home talking to their parents, they're gonna shut down. So, and then it's that dialogue about trying to understand your kids, having your kids understand you, but it's keeping those avenues of communication open so they don't feel they're wrong.
I kind of agree with you, but the problem with an immigrant parent, most immigrant parents are working 16 hours plus. They come from one job to another job. And then for them to make time to sit down with their kids will be maybe having a meal. And when they're having that meal, they're rushing, just 2 minutes, then go into the shower, get their rest. So the kids kind of raise themselves in African communities. Because this parent is, we look at the financial benefits. We need to get covered financially before anything else. Unfortunately, that's the belief that we have. Make sure our bank accounts are good, then we can deal with the rest. That's the unfortunate bit with us.
Can I comment
Yes,
back?
please.
Okay. Again, I was a single parent.
Yeah.
Working full-time. Juggling all the things you are juggling.
Yeah.
How in my home I always because I had to go to work.
Yeah.
It wasn't an option. I had to put food on the table.
Yes.
It was a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
It was again keeping a safe space.
Yes.
Am I?
Yeah, I kind of understand where you're coming from, but we come with this mentality from Africa because all these gun violences and all the mental health issues, we didn't have them where we came from. So we come with that idea that it's going to be safe. It's going to be okay. I will tell them, go to school, come back at this time, put your food in the microwave, and that's what you think they should follow.
Right.
Now, whereas you're a single mom, you might have been doing one job. Now, with African parents, we have a family here we're taking care of and a family back home. So I have to do an 9 to 5, then do another night shift and then another weekend because I'm supporting everyone
You're
in Africa.
supporting two families.
Two families.
Got it.
So that's where it becomes
The stress comes.
the stress. So when I come home and my kid wants to talk to me, I'm too tired to listen. What am I giving back? I'm just giving backlashing. You know, you think you have it easy. I'm giving you food on your table. You have this. You have a phone because we didn't grow up around that. So you're only relating to what you're providing, forgetting that they need more from you than just providing. So we are physically there, but not emotionally there, unfortunately, because we are tired.
Sitting in this forum, I appreciate what you've shared
Yeah.
about the stress of supporting two families.
Yeah.
And not just two families in this country, one in this
know.
country. It's a lot of stress.
It is,
lot of
and that's where
stress.
we lose it and fail. Then when a situation comes back, that's when we're trying to catch up. But it's too late because literally these kids in our homes have raised themselves. You know, the only comfort they have, maybe the person they're talking to, is each other. And if it's an only child, they have no one to talk to. That's where the suicide comes in. That's where they get into something, or social media, they get up with people, make friends on social media, because I'm the mom in the house, but I'm not there. I'm physically there, but not emotionally there. Each time she's talking to me because I'm so tired, I'll doze off. Mommy, you're not listening, but you're too tired. And you're not only providing for the people in Africa, you're sorting out their situations. You know, so you're emotionally tired, you're drained, completely drained, because you're sending money and money is not being used for what it's supposed to be used for. So you have had quarrels with them, then you go to work, try to do all that it's so hard for an African parent, no matter whether you're both parents there or single parents, the stress that an immigrant parent faces is so different from what an American parent faces, unfortunately.
Thank you for clarifying that.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I mean, I appreciate everything you said, and it's beautiful. You're right. It is. You're right. I mean, helping both, both families and everything. But then at that point, and then I want to ask you, then how do we combat that? How do we combat an African immigrant coming here and facing these obstacles? Because I feel like we're leaving one thing and picking up a huger issue where, yes, we could have civil war back home, be okay with it, and be still having to raise a whole family. But you're telling me we can't be here and be kosher and not able to do that. Then what's the true value of family? What's the true value of being here? Then at that point, you have to deep dive into that and look into that, because those are my concerns at that point. Then me myself looking into, like, even now, like, okay, how do I move forward? How do I talk to my child? Because you are right, we are tired. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but you are right. I never understood that exhaustion until recently, and it's big. It's a mental strain like nobody's business. But knowing that, and you see again, how do you combat that?
I think now that most African parents should really realize that this exists and these kids need us. You don't only have to have a big bank account or provide. They need you emotionally. They need you to hear. You must be their safe place that they can talk to anything. So as much as we are putting in the hours at work, making this money, chasing the dollar, let's put in the money for our kids. Because once they lose it, you can't bring them back. So as much as you're doing that, reduce the amount of hours you're working and put in time for your kids before it's too late. I'm speaking from experience because I went through it. My daughter came in when she was 16, getting on to 17. And all I did was like, I need to get you a car. I need to get this. So I put in all the hours. And she was like, Mom, you don't look through my books. I was like, why should I don't even understand, because I wasn't understanding what they were doing. But all she wanted was my attention.
Your time.
And I ignored her completely. I had a 9 to 5. From 9 to 5, I had an Ontario company, so I clean and make sure all my workers are doing the right job. Get home at midnight. Literally, she only sees me when I come back, take off my office clothes, dress up in something else to go and work, then come back at midnight. But she's processing. She's just coming to the country. She hasn't made friends. She's missing her family back home. And I wasn't there. It was too late. It happened. When she made 18, she walked out. Then later on, as we were talking, she's saying, Mom, I needed someone to talk to. You were not there. But what was I looking at? Providing. How I wish I knew this. And I would have sat down with my daughter and reduce the numbers of hours I was working and make sure that we talk about stuff. Listen to her. Create a safe place for her to open up to me. I did not, but I didn't know because I looked at, I'm providing this. I have to get you here. I have to, And we all don't know because what we focus at is the dollar.
Well, that is why we have ALG, right? African Leadership Group.
Yeah.
We are building up awareness in our communities,
Exactly.
in our immigrant community. Not only the African immigrant community, but all immigrant communities. We are trying to build up awareness so that we can be able to be aware of these issues that we are going through. I have 2 girls. They're all grown up now, I would say, One of them is 28 or so. The way I brought up that 28-year-old daughter is totally different from the way I brought up my 19-year-old daughter now, because I learned a lot. And I think my 28-year-old daughter is really jealous in the fact that, you guys didn't used to do this. You didn't do this. You didn't do this, You used to beat me up. Yes, we did that, and all those kind of things for saying these kind of things or for doing this here and there, But we learn so much. We are creating awareness, in the community to help us out.
Awareness that emotional safety is just as important as having food on the table.
Exactly.
Is just as important as doing all the things that you do as parents to make sure other needs are met.
Yeah.
And then another point that I'm hearing is that parent mental health
Yes.
is important too,
It
because if
is.
you are working 60 hours and are exhausted and are stressed, you're not going to have the emotional resources available that you need, even if you make the time. Even if you have some time to spend with your child, emotionally, you're so drained
Yes.
if you're not taking care of your mental health first. And that can be so hard for parents all the time because you want to put your kids first.
Yes.
But if you're not taking care of yourself, how can you be there
To take
for
care
your
of
kids?
Yeah, exactly.
I use the old airplane metaphor is a good one, right? Everyone's heard this one, probably, if you've been on a plane.
Yes.
Put on your own oxygen mask first
Before you save them.
before you help your kids because you cannot be there and you cannot help your kids in the way that they need and show up for them and be emotionally present if you're not taking care of yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we go back, we circles back to parents have got to take care of themselves to be able to take care of their kids.
I think we have to circle back to the aspect of believing that there is a mental health problem.
Yeah.
That is a problem
That's
that
a
we
problem.
parents they don't usually, especially immigrant parents, don't usually think about, you know. Oh, what do you mean by mental health? No, we don't do that, you know. We don't do
for
that kind
lazy
of thing, you know. You know. What's wrong with you? You know, we don't do that kind of thing, you know. That's the thing, right? That usually parents, you know. So we have to believe that there is a problem.
Yeah.
That we do have a problem here, you know, that we have to handle. We have to think about ourselves first, you know, that if we are able to handle our own mental health problems, I think we could be able to help our children.
Yes.
And like you were saying before, not waiting until you've reached a big tipping point, a big crisis, a big problem, starting to open up the conversation, the dialogue about how you're really doing.
Yeah.
And that's challenging because teens don't often want to talk to their parents
No.
about how they're really doing. That communication takes a lot of work
For
from
that.
parents.
Yeah.
And we can talk today more about some tips I've learned along the way of working with a lot of parents and teens on how to get that dialogue going because it's not always easy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That would be
Any
impressive.
help will be appreciated. That's
absolutely.
Because most of those teenagers just lock themselves in their bedrooms
Yeah.
and just be in front of their screens the whole day. And for a parent, you're like, good, you're there, okay.
Or
You
maybe,
feel
"I
they're
tried,
safe.
I tried."
and
Yeah.
you're like, okay. So, but if we can get a way of how to get them to open up to us, how they can trust us, and how we can create that safe place for them without being judged. Because as African parents or immigrants, we're always like, oh, you didn't have, I didn't grow up like that. I didn't have that. We are relating to how we grew up, to what the current situation is. Yet they are so different. We are on two different zones. And that we need to come at least meet them halfway or go all the way for our kids because these are our kids. Whatever happens to them affects us. So if we could get tips and resources how to get to their same zone where they're at, that would be so grateful.
Yeah. I mean, I think meeting in halfway, is a good place to go because, you know, why would you expect your teens to want to listen to you and learn about what you grew up with and the culture you come from, your family is from, if you're not doing the same and making that same effort to understand the culture that they're living in and where they're at. Yeah.
I missed all days. They're a lot easier. It seems like
Life was easy.
so much easier.
So easy.
But a lot was swept under the rug too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Some things we are not talked about.
Yeah.
And I think we didn't take anything at heart then because we had a lot of support system. So things would easily slip, like, you know, and you would not take it at heart. But the kids nowadays carry everything, you know. Everything is a log unto them. Whereas us, some things you're like, I don't ask about that, and it's okay. And you move on because you have a lot of distractions. Our distractions were creative. Whereas the distractions the kids have right now are very destructive. So it's not helping them. But if we could get the skills and the resources to understand our teenagers and be able to walk along, you know, being a teenager alone is difficult with all the hormones and everything. And then now you're in a different country and you're born here, but you're still a teenager, but with a parent who has an African mind. Mindset and doing things the African way. It's so hard for them. And we want to understand them. We want to be better parents. We love our kids. We just need to be equipped. Get the
And I think anyone a part of this conversation, whether watching this or here today, acknowledges the importance of discussing mental health and opening up communication. And so that's the first place, you
Yes.
know, so you're already well on your way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was wondering, out of curiosity,
Yeah.
where would any parent be able to find any information in regards to what apps to, to be able to go over with your kids, or for as an adult yourself to have a better idea how that works, or its communication skills, how to start that, or anything like that?
Yeah.
Any place, designated area to look at, or anything by chance you think?
Absolutely. There's a lot of resources out there in terms of social media monitoring. Is that what you're asking about?
Social
Or-
media monitoring.
yeah.
I'm not quite sure where they do all the bullying now, and this is what apps and whatnot.
It's so hard to stay
Yeah.
current on all of that because just as you're learning one thing, they're on
Another
to
on
the
top of
next. But I think even more important than having the right app so you can see what they're doing or having full access to their phone, because teenagers can be very sneaky on their phones. There's all sorts of things, ways of hiding information on their phones. So I think even more important is working on building up that communication so that you're building that relationship so that your teenager can be open with you, or younger even. Social media use starts younger than the teens, but and have them be comfortable with telling you about what's going on in their online world. Because if you're just trying to be your own investigator on the side,
You'll fail.
Good luck with that.
And you lose trust with them. The minute
Exactly.
they realize you're sneaking on them, they'll just keep hiding everything
Yeah.
from you. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess we can talk a little bit about some things I see parents, well-intentioned parents trying that doesn't work, right? Because parents want to talk to their kids. They want their kids to talk to them. But so often have teenagers tell me, my mom I can't talk to my mom because she's going to do this. My dad's going to say that. And these are things that parents they mean well. But it just shuts down communication. So I think the first thing is when parents try to teach before they listen, right? Lecturing, or even asking too many questions. Teens are scared to talk to their parents because they know it's going to be an interrogation, right? I don't want to answer all those questions.
What's too many questions?
I was gonna say.
Right? You have questions. Yeah. And there will be time for that. I'm not saying don't ask your teen questions, but if you start off with question after question after question, they're going to feel like they're getting interrogated, and it's too much. It's overwhelming.
Okay.
If they feel like you're teaching, you're lecturing before you understand, that shuts down communication too. So I would say your first goal in conversing with your child is to listen
Listen.
Okay.
and to help them feel understood to the best of your ability. You may need to ask some questions to understand, but to listen, to understand, and to validate. So by validate, I mean express some understanding of how they're feeling, even if you don't agree.
Okay.
That one's tricky, right? You may not agree with the reason that they're feeling a certain way. But if you can understand that emotion that they may be experiencing human to human, right? Like I may not, if I put myself in your shoes, that might not be how I feel, but I know what it feels like to feel scared. I know what it feels like to feel worried, angry, whatever the feeling is. Help them feel their feelings to be understood. That can be hugely impactful for kids and teens.
I was gonna ask you, when is it too much of when it becomes trying to understand them, and then when it becomes a crutch, or when it's becoming a disadvantage to the parent? I guess you say. How do you teeter on to that concept?
Say more about what you mean there.
Because like, let's say, trying to support the kid in this situation by asking questions, being involved, but at the same time, how are you, because of all the advances that they're aware of, how do you differentiate the difference between when they take advantage of that trust in reference to now you're giving them all this trust, understanding, trying to be there. Now, because I'm unaware of everything else, now I'm being taken advantage of as a parent from my child, especially coming from an immigrant. You know, like we stated that they come here, they work all the time, and trying to integrate that concept with the family. That would be my concern, and I was going to ask you, how do you combat that?
I think what we're talking about here is showing understanding for the feelings, but not necessarily the actions or the behaviors that they're taking with those feelings, right? So you say you don't want to be allowing them, oh, I understand, so it's okay if you're doing X, Y, and Z. It's okay if you're not trying your best in school, right? That's not what we're saying here.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Good, you're clarifying.
You're understanding the feelings. I understand you're feeling overwhelmed, right? And just starting there, but not necessarily okaying the actions, the behaviors that are coming as a result of those feelings.
Okay, so pretty much reciprocate, understand, validate, and then
Feeling.
and then if there's a consequence to their action, whatever it is at that point, delegate that in a more different way.
But separate those two out, right? Start with the feelings. I understand. And then you pause, right? Before going into whether it's problem solving, discipline, whatever the act, however you need to address what's going on. But if you start by talking about the feelings and really truly trying to understand how they're feeling, that can help open up that door of communication.
Once again, if you're just joining us, we are in the African Leadership Group Health and Wellness Committee's Mental Health Month. We are talking about Mental Health Month, and it is so important for us to emphasize on what we've just been taught here today. One way in conversing with our children is to listen, understanding of their feelings, as well as validating their feelings, And I think the validating aspect is an aspect of like empathy, having an empathy, those kind of things. So don't forget about that. Listen, try to understand their feelings. At the same time, try to also validate them, our children.
From what you've said, I believe we as parents need a session where we get maybe a workshop where we need to learn this. Because validating your feelings as an African parent, that is easily said than done. And we as parents need a session where we need to learn how to validate their feelings, how to get empathy for these kids, because we didn't grow up around that. No one validated us. We didn't exist. You only speak when you're spoken to. So for me to come from that and then say, oh, I understand why you're in bed the whole day, it's going to be so hard. Because one thing I'm doing in my head is like, I'm protecting my child not to be a lazy person. So the way I was taught is be hard. Get it out with a cane, whatever. So flog them until they get the understanding. Now, coming from how I was brought up to validating, I understand it's going to be so hard. I don't know about the rest, but for me, I might even laugh. I'm like, really, I don't believe you, but I was told. Oh, it's so hard. We need a session to understand this and be able to practice it. Otherwise, I'm hearing you, but I can't see myself doing it. Those are two different things.
I understand how hard it can be when that's not how you were raised.
Yeah.
That's not anything you have experience with.
Exactly.
And it can feel like you're saying, okay, you're being permissive to behaviors that are unacceptable to you, right? It's not okay to stay in bed all day.
Yes.
And that's where you go back to validating the feeling, not the behavior,
No,
right?
yeah.
It's okay to feel sad.
No, I will be like, why are you sad? You have a TV, you have a phone, you have food, why are you sad? It's, literally this, it's very easy to hear all this, but bring it into my house, it will not be that. when I had my daughter and she was going through this, I was a case manager. And while I was at work as the best case manager, but I always, when we were having meetings, I was like, I'm a case manager here because you're paying me. Once I go home, I'm a mother and an African mother. And exactly, I didn't know how to switch because the way we express our love is the hard way. And the way we feel we came out, we are who we are today because our parents were hard on us, unfortunately. So how was my mom? How did she raise me? Everything was done. It was a soldier's house. You know, it was military. And in my head, everything is done military. My daughter would be scared. She's like, oh, mommy's coming back. And she's always shaking. But because that's how I was raised. And that's the only way I could get things done. She knows no dishes in the sink. Your bed has got to be made. You're supposed to be up and, you know.
And you can have those rules, right? I'm not saying take away the structure in your home, take away the rules, take away the discipline. But if we're agreeing that mental health is important.
It is.
If we're agreeing that you want to have that communication, trying to understand is a good place to start.
Yeah, it is. But I think the most work has got to be done with the parents. Parents, the work has got to start with the parents. So once we get in line, then we can be able to help our kids.
And parents need to see the value in doing that work.
Exactly.
Can I share a personal story?
Yes, please.
I grew up in the military, not in the military.
Yeah.
I grew up in
Such a home.
what you are describing.
Yes.
In the home I grew up in, my feelings weren't
Never regarded.
never validated or acknowledged.
Yes.
Or I was not allowed to feel.
Yeah.
I was not allowed to feel.
Yeah.
And at 18 years old, I knew there was something wrong with me. And I put myself in counseling. And my father said to me, what do you need that for? If you want to go to counseling, I'm not paying for it. At 18 years old, I got a job. I had and put myself in. And I will never forget, ever in my life, that day, in that counseling session, day one, he said to me, please fill in the blank I am aware of. And I said, oh, that's easy. I'm aware of the balloons, I'm aware of the paper, I'm aware of the water bottle. He said, no. He said, I want you to finish the sentence, I am aware of, and something about yourself. I go, yeah, I'm aware of my blue sweater and my blue pants and my watch. I had no awareness of how I felt.
Because you're not allowed to feel.
I'm not allowed to feel. And so I went on a quest, a personal quest, to unlearn this. It's taken a lifetime. So I understand this and have experienced it personally.
Yeah.
And as a mother, my son is now grown, I felt that the most important thing I could give him was for him to be able to feel and be allowed to feel and not get that smack.
Yeah.
I feel sad. What do you mean you feel sad? That's what I got.
Yeah. And it's so sad that when we are taking our kids through this, we don't want to acknowledge it. We are in denial because at so many, when my daughter, when she gave me an ultimatum, Mom, I'll stay with you if you're going for counseling. And to me, that was an insult. I was like, counseling? This kid? I raised you. How do you tell me counseling? So am I mad? Am I crazy? Yeah. But now that we've made it out the relationship and we're talking about stuff, I realize, yeah, I need counseling. I need to, because there's so much that I haven't felt. I wasn't allowed to feel. And I'm just building on that, you know? So there is a lot of digging that needs to be done for me as a parent to be able to express, to be able to feel sympathy or empathy for my child. I'm trying right now. Maybe I can do better because I have an example. But what about the other parents who have teenagers in their homes? What about the new mother today who is still traumatized by the way she was raised up? So we as parents need to acknowledge that we need sessions with therapists. Once we get that, then we'll be better parents. But then again, we look at the cost. Like my daughter tells me, Mom, check, maybe your insurance pays for that. guess what? I've never checked it. She kept saying, Mom, and I'm listening, but it's still, and I know I need it, but I'm still an African. I don't need it. I go to church. Everything's sorted through prayers. I think I need deliverance. It's not true, but I know till today. She went when she was 18. She's 20. She still says, "Mom, I think we need a session," and she knows now how to speak about it because you kind of come to understand each other. She knows where not to go, or since we don't stay together, it's easy. If we fall apart, then if things don't work out, if you're talking and we're not agreeing, we give ourselves space, then come back. But how about, I wish someone else can be able to catch it while their kid is still at home. Be able to sort this out and be brave enough to go for those sessions. When we had the session in the Leadership Africa, when we had a counselor come in, I didn't believe how much, I just kept crying. I didn't know how much pain I had within me. And I just kept crying and crying and crying. And guess what? It's things that I hadn't spoken about. And then that's when I got a text and I texted because my sister had just been here with my mom. And, as families stay together, it was just 2 weeks. There are things you clash and the things I was holding on. And then I was like, I wasn't happy with this, but I wish we could have done it this way, But I was holding on to it with a lot of anger. You're like, you come and you mess me up. Not really but it's misunderstanding, small things. But because I had the guidance of my teenager, she's no longer a teenager, she's now a young youth, she kept saying, Mom, you need to talk about stuff. Express yourself. Yeah, I hear her, but most times my expression is anger. And when I express myself, I'm going to annoy people. So because I'm very blunt, I will say it, and it comes from a place of anger instead of a place of love. So I'm speaking on behalf of other parents, other immigrants, other African, I could even some Black Americans. They also have faced this. They've gone through the same lives that we have gone through. If we can get sessions with, sessions for mental health in whatever form, as people go for wine and paint, let's create sessions where we're having wine and talk about stuff. No, let's get creative.
Thank you very much.
About
That's so wonderful, Thank you very much. Let's give our professional here some time now to be able to, give us some word,
Well, I did want to share some resources that are available in the community to have sessions, whether it be to get support for your child, for you, for your family together. It does take time. Yeah. It will always take time, but it doesn't always have to cost money. So wherever you live in your county, there's a community mental health center that provides free services. And so whether you're in Denver, or in the Mental Health Center of Denver, in Aurora here, they have the Aurora Community Mental Health Center. That's a good place to start.
Aurora Community, okay.
So if you just look up where you live and write community mental health, there'll be a community mental health center wherever you live. And they have all sorts of services, resources, all sorts of things. There's also a program in Colorado that has recently it started during the pandemic called I Matter. It's for kids to have 6 free sessions with a therapist.
Oh, okay.
I Matter Colorado.
Okay.
So those are 2 good places to start in terms of getting access to services. Yeah, absolutely. If you ever have concerns about someone in your life being in crisis, a mental health crisis, if you're worried about someone and you're not sure if they're okay, Colorado Crisis Services is a organization that you can call, text, walk in 24/7. They're available. If you're worried about your teen and you say, I don't know the right questions to ask, I don't know if they're okay, they can help point you in the right direction, and it can be entirely confidential if you're worried about sharing, personal information. They have a website, Colorado Crisis Services, where they have, their phone number and all of that as well. There's also a lot of resources available online where you can read more and learn more, a lot of guides for parents. Some of my favorites, the CDC has their guide, Essentials for Parenting Teens. A lot of good information in there. The Child Mind Institute is another good one, and the American Association of Pediatrics. Tons of information out there, but those are some favorites of places to get more information. And, you know, it's a process. It's not going to be one conversation. You know, you may do everything to say, okay, I'm going to go listen, I'm going to validate, and maybe your teen's tired. They don't
Yeah.
feel like talking, you know?
They've given up.
Or they assume, you know, you have all these good intentions of trying things to do things differently. You're going to need to prove yourself that you really are able to do things differently. And, you know, you may have a conversation where you go back into your old ways, and that's okay, you know, as long as you show that you're trying over time.
Yeah.
You know, and talk to your teen about, you know, we're going to try to do things differently here, right? I'm learning, you're learning, and keep trying. And another way to open up that door of communication is spending that time together, maybe not trying to talk,
Just
right? Quiet or doing something together.
Okay.
Quality time, right? If they don't assume every time I'm with mom, she always wants to dive in deep to things, and so that can be a little overwhelming, right? That we can just spend quality time together doing something, and then you'll be surprised at how often the conversation just starts flowing when you open up that space for them to talk.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, on behalf of the African Leadership Group. Thank you to our parents here today, wonderful parents, and also our professional, Dr. Jillian Diamond, right? You know, for coming here to discuss an important topic like this, you know, and share valuable information with our community members here today. As we all know, May is Mental Health Month, but every day actually is Awareness Month, right?
Yeah.
We as parents need to learn how to communicate to our children without them feeling like we are pressuring them to always do good. We need to let them know it's okay to mess up, right? To make mistakes, and that is how we learn and grow as well. Thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate it. Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's one.